Hi golfers, Nick here for Untitled Golf. It's Friday, so welcome to another lesson on golf tips. This week in golf tips, I'm going to share with you a simple tip using the stack and tilt golf swing to help you change the trajectory of your golf shots. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a really great way using the stack and tilt golf swing to help you shape the golf ball differently. So in certain situations, you need to keep the ball low. Sometimes you need to hit the ball high. Using this system, which is used by the best players in the world, by changing something very simple in your golf swing, you can predict a different ball flight outcome. I'm going to run through a system how you can adapt the stack and tilt golf swing and adapt your position in the finish to create different trajectories. So in certain situations where you need to keep the ball low, maybe hitting shots into the wind or keeping it under an obstacle, or certain situations where you need to get the ball up a little bit higher and stop it a little bit quicker. So we're going to run through some of the key checkpoints and look at some data to show you guys how you can adapt your swing to hit these different trajectories. First of all, let's hit my standard shot. And the way I measure the golf swing for these different shots would be in the follow through position. So when I get to position 8, where the right arm is parallel to the ground, where is the club head? So this would be the widest possible arc that I could create here. So it's basically a straight line from my right arm down the shaft, a little bit like Zach Johnson's golf swing. So as he goes through, his release of his hands, the way he rehinges the golf club is delayed compared to some other golfers. So he would hit the ball potentially the lowest. The opposite to this, to give you guys an idea of what we're looking at here, as we go through, if I get to right arm parallel, and now the shaft is almost at 90 degrees to my right arm, that would be the most rehinging of the golf club, and this would potentially create the highest ball flight. Someone like Bubba Watson would do this. This would also create a little bit extra speed as well through the hitting zone. Now in the stack and tilt system, the standard shot would be to, when we get to right arm parallel, would be to have somewhere in between. So you can see the shaft here just angled. So if we were to put a number on, if this was 180 degrees and that was 90, sort of 135 would be a good sort of benchmark of roughly from my right arm to the shaft would be sort of a standard release. So in today's video, we're going to test this out. I'm going to hit the 3 different shots. We're going to take a look at the standard release. We're going to look at the low shot, where there's the line of my right arm is basically the line of the shaft. Then we're going to look at the maximum rehinging, where you've got that 90-degree angle. We're going to take a look at some club data and the ball flight just to see what the differences are. So important to note here from the camera angle here, as I go through, I'm keeping my hands and club on the grid. So I've talked about this a lot in previous videos, where the club path would follow the outside line and the hand path would follow the inside line. So as I go through here, I'm moving my hands and my club round to the left. I'm not swinging down the target line. And I think that's quite an important point to note here, that I'm keeping everything, my hands and club on the grid. For this particular shot, I'm going to actually stop at right arm parallel, just to give you guys the sort of idea of what sort of positions we're looking at. This wouldn't be my normal shot. My standard swing would actually continue a little bit further. But I'm just going to show you just for the purpose of this video, and you can play shots like this as well. It's just really just to give you guys a checkpoint to look for at this position. So that would be my standard shot. You can see on the screen there, pretty nice ball flight. Just pushed out to the right and drew back in towards the target line there. So taking a look at some of that data there, carried at 155, so I'd expect a little bit more from my full out swing, so I probably haven't quite got the speed on this one. The launch there, 18.7. You can see the angle of attack there, 4.8 downwards. The contact was pretty good. It's a nice tight draw. We're going to take a look at some of the trajectories together at the end, just to show you guys the difference between the 3 shots. So that would be my standard shot with the stack and tilt golf swing, with the standard release of the arm and the wrist as I move through to P8 in the finish position. So you saw my standard release position there for the stack and tilt golf swing. That was kind of like a typical ball flight. So I'm going to move on now and test out the low shot. So this is kind of no rehinging of the golf club. Basically a straight line at P8, right on parallel with my arm and the shaft at this position. And we're going to take a look at the difference here in the ball flight. Just bear in mind I'm standing in the same position. I've got the ball in the same position on the grid. So I'm basically setting up and having the same backswing, but just changing the way my hands and the club release through impact. So sort of the wide arc finish. So a little draw, didn't quite flush that. That was maybe a little bit out the toe, which is probably why it just started to just curve a little bit more to the left. So club path 8 degrees into out, 4 degrees downwards, launch at 16.9. So that's a couple of degrees lower than the previous shot, and the carry distance was similar. So I didn't quite get the contact right on that shot, but you could see the difference there in the launch. Still got the push draw. So let's move on now and test out the high shot. So another thing you might expect with this is with the release of the hands and the golf club, as I go through, when I delay the rehinging, generally the face will stay more closed, and as I increase the rehinging, the face will generally open up a little bit more. So you saw there I had a more draw with the lower shot, which I'm kind of not surprised by. So I might expect maybe this ball to push a little bit more, and probably certainly not curve as much to the left. It might curve to the left, but I'm expecting actually more of a push. It might even fade a little bit. So be interested to see what the difference is in the ball flight. But it just gives you guys a little bit of an idea how you can adapt the system to play these different shots. I'm not really changing much else in my swing here, other than just where I finish. Setting up the same, ball position's the same. Now you can adapt other things in your swing to change the trajectory, but I'm just showing you a standard shot on the grid with a different release point. So now I'm going to go for a sort of maximum release here, more like a Bubba Watson type release. Like I said, I'm expecting this face to be more open and maybe even push to the right. So that would be my expectation, more than an overdraw. So yeah, pretty much what I expected. Almost a dead straight push. Now, interesting, those balls have all finished or carried roughly the same distance. You can see on the screen there, it looks like he wants to draw actually. So yeah, still got the draw's built in on the grid. So carried 154, swing path 6.7. The angle attack was a bit shallower, and the launch there over 20 degrees, 21.9 degrees. So contact was a bit better than that previous shot. So let's take a look now at these trajectories in detail and look at the club data to show you guys really in detail what the difference is between these three golf shots. Not surprising to me really, just taking a look at those three shots there. It's kind of what I expected, and that's the beauty of having a system in the stack and tilt system and being able to predict what's going to happen to the ball flight just by changing something very simple in terms of the way you rehinge the golf club as you swing through. And you can see how when you look at some players on tour, this is how they do this, whether they do this deliberately or not, it's how they can shape the golf ball. There's other things, like I said, that you can do to shape the golf ball, changing the ball position. I just wanted to show you a standard shot on the grid there, just by changing my position of the club and the rehinging of the club at position 8 when the right arm's parallel, the difference is in the ball flight. So kind of what I expected. So let's take a look at this data in a little bit more detail, just to show you guys backing up what happened and what was the difference between those three shots. So first of all, just taking a look at the screen here, you can see the shots on the screen, and the green one is the standard shot, which is in the middle. Red is obviously the high one, and blue is the low one. And like I said on the camera there, when you change the release of the club and the rehinging of the golf club as you swing through, it does affect the club face to some degree. So the maximum rehinging will tend to open up the club face as you go through, and we saw there on the data that and the ball flight, the ball sort of pushed, didn't quite overdraw. And this is another adaptation for the system. If you want to try and create more curve, you would potentially flex the wrist and delay the rehinging of the club as you go through to keep it low and to make it draw more, if you like. And then to open the face, you would maybe have more cupping and more rehinging of the wrist to keep the face a little bit more open. So when you look at the data in a little bit of detail there, you can see there in the launch angle with the high trajectory 21.9, with the low trajectory 16.9. So quite a big difference there, 5 degrees difference in launch, and then right in the middle there 18.7 is the standard trajectory. So you can see the differences there in the launch. Not surprisingly, the spin rate reflects that as well. So 6,385 for the standard. The high trajectory was obviously the high spin at 7,458, and then low trajectory 5,892, which is the lowest spin. And the carry distances were all very similar, within 2 yards of each other, and the total distance was quite similar as well. So it just shows you that I tried to do that as fair as possible. That was one take, 3 shots, and that's, like I said, the beauty of the system is being able to predict the ball flight just by changing something very simple in the follow through. Let's take a look quickly at some more club data. So just taking a look at the club data there, the high trajectory actually produced the fastest club head speed, which I wasn't surprised about. When I rehinge the club quickly, that does increase the club head speed, but it doesn't actually normally result in a longer shot. It obviously depends on launch conditions, strike, and spin rates. Now, when I hit those shots there, the low trajectory I did catch a little bit off the toe, which probably brought down the efficiency of the shot. You can see the standard trajectory had the highest efficiency because I struck it pretty good. The high trajectory would generally have the lowest efficiency because you're opening the face more. It's going to come off a little bit slower off the face as you go through. But I tried to swing those as similar as possible, but you can just see the differences in the way I rehinge the club. You create more speed with the high trajectory. The loft there you can see is the highest, 30.5 with the high trajectory, the lowest with the low trajectory at 23.6, and in between there at 25.3 is the in the middle there with the standard trajectory is the loft. So you can see a pretty clear difference between all of those three shots. I tried to swing them as similar as I can, but I just wanted to change that release position in the finish. So hopefully that's given you a little bit more insight into the system and how you can adapt your finish position to change the trajectory of the shot. So golfers, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, post them in the box below. If you want to find out a little bit more about the Stack and Tilt golf swing, I put together this playlist. Make sure you check that out. And I'd always recommend to link up with a Stack and Tilt coach if you're working on your golf swing, whether that's in person or online. So thanks for watching again, golfers, and I'll see you again next week for another video.